welcome everyone and declare the meeting open. And we gather here today to duly and faithfully carry out our duties to the best of our judgment and ability for the advancement of this district and the benefit of all of our community and fellow citizens. And the Coorong District Council members acknowledge and pay respect to the traditional custodians of the land and the waters, the Nurrunjeri people, whose ancestral lands are on which we meet today. We acknowledge the deep feelings of attachment and relationship of Aboriginal people to country and pay our respects to elders past and present. We also extend that respect to all First Nation people. Thank you, councillors. Welcome for the December and what I call the Christmas meeting. Item 1 on the agenda, councillors, apologies, I have none, but just note Councillor Leng is the only councillor on Zoom today. Item 2, the acknowledgements. Anyone? I'm unaware of any acknowledgements. Okay. We also need to accept the 3 late items by motion, please, that are in confidence. Could someone move that way, please? Councillor Rountree and Councillor Coleman. We received them, they will be dealt with at the end of the meeting. The council accept the 3, actually the words were there, accept the late items as tabled. Any debate? Being none, I will put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Thank you. Item 2, confirmation of minutes of the ordinary meeting held on the 16th of November. 2 separate motions do we need, Ashley?
Yes,
generally. Okay, the first one, please. Someone move that way. Councillor Bland and Councillor Yench. Any discussion around them? Being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Someone move the minutes of the special meeting of the 23rd of November, please. Councillors Rountree and Taylor. Any discussion on that? Being none, I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against, that's carried unanimously. Item 3, adjourned business. I have nil. Item 4, minute action list, councillors. Is there any questions of the minute action list, please? Councillor Bland.
Just a question for clarification for myself is on 252/21 strategy. While the information will go out local newspaper publications, will we be holding those in each of the communities or the larger communities where the majority of the work is being done?
Yes, now we do face-to-face consultation. We weren't planning to, councillor.
So we'll put them in the Lakeland. How will people respond to what their options are?
So, for you, Mayor, as with any other consultation, they are able to come back to council with their thoughts either through email, phone, come through the front counter. We've got a MailChimp in there, and there will be a MailChimp.
Could I ask that we consider just putting a plan up into the towns so people can have a look at the ones we're actually marking off at this point in time, and that way they will see it clearer, I think.
We can do that.
In the offices or halls.
Any other questions out of the minute action list? Being none, we move on. Item 5, questions with notice. Councillors, we'll start with you, Councillor Arthur. There's an answer there. Why is Councillor entertaining the grader operators' utes behind the graders? Is it somewhat explain the present circumstance, Councillor?
Yes, very thorough answer there, but according to engineers, it's not correct. But why do we, for a start, why do we have to have A-frames that have got to be removed? We only drive it out, hook it onto a grader normally, move to the next one, so we shouldn't have to remove the A-frame. It should be a permanent fixture. And there's 24 others going around that got the same framework. I know if it's a Toyota big one, you can put it bolt straight onto the chassis. So I think it just needs a little bit more a forethought into this, because, like that they're everywhere, all the other councils are doing it. Why are we different?
So, councillor, it appears that the particular brand of ute we've got is giving us the grief in a legal sense at this stage. So I think the ongoing work going to happen. Even A-frame, some other councillors have fitted them certain brands of utes and found that that's quite difficult to make it fully compliant. I think we'll just leave it with the staff at this stage to continue to work on options. There are other options besides A-frames. But I think your question and the answer outlines the issue from a legal sense, if nothing else.
Okay.
Councillor Rountree, around this subject.
On the same subject, just could you explain what happens now if they're not able to tow their vehicles? What is happening?
So the director answer.
Currently, graders will drive to a specific location and other staff member will help them shuffle across the district. What we're looking to do going forward is using that opportunity for the coordinator of roads to meet with the grader operator to drive them back to the ute and actually use that time to drive over roads that they've recently patrol graded or are coming up to patrol grade that haven't scoped what is required, and also use it as an improvement tool to look at what they've particularly done and how they can improve the service that they provide. So using the shuffling of vehicles across the district as an opportunity to work better and learn from having a different set of eyes over the works they've currently provided. So we don't want to waste that opportunity. We want to use that opportunity. It's something that without the use of A-frames we need to do. So it's an opportunity to improve the service that we deliver to the community.
And the other thing, I think, it would be true to say that it's not, I think there's a perception that it's a extra use of resources, but the director of, the roads coordinator goes out 2 or 3 times a week to see his staff. So he's there on the spot most of the time anyway. So we're utilising the time that he's there as part of this process.
Okay, I move to the second question. Councillor Arthur, it's around the potential expenditure for a new community library building at Menengi, and I suppose the point is at this stage we haven't been asked to put any funding in, and the package that the state government is, may or may not ask us. That's the long and short, but the answer's there in long form, councillor.
Very, very succinctly put, except what I like the figure. 30% of 3 million is 900,000, because all the people will look at that, and it's $900,000 now. The reason that I'm asking this is somewhere along the line, if this happens, if the Menengi school want to change their library for whatever to make it closer, the ratepayers here will be up for $900,000. Now we're scratching to look after what we've got now with the budget. So I think every ratepayer in the Coorong District Council should know that they may have a new liability of $900,000.
If the figure of 3 million is adopted and if the 30% is laid out in the new criteria.
There's a bit of discussion.
Councillor, I'll start with Councillor Bland and Councillor Hill around this question, I hope.
Yes, it is. And I'm not sure where the 3 million figure came from, but also the library component, which is the only part that we would be involved in, as I understand it, is a component of a larger administration section, which may be where the $3 million came in at this point, but it's definitely not considered a $3 million library. So I want that clarified for the residents of this community, these communities, because that is not, nor does even the school know that it might be a $3 million project at this point in time. So at this point in time, that is pretty grey.
Councillor Hill.
That was going to be my point. Was the library is only one component of the whole building process.
So we await the department working at the pace the department works at.
I haven't seen any figure that says 3 million. It's more about that when they come to the point of having to design a building, there'll be a component that is the public library that is covered under this requirement. And then there's also, as you will note, an in-kind opportunity as well. So we really don't know what figures at all at this point.
Correct.
Okay, I'll move to the next one. Councillor Arthur, there's an answer there about how we,
Thank you.
what, where and why we patrol road.
As you know, they've had quite a few complaints after, I think might have been the first road we graded was Boothby Road with no grader on. And everyone was complaining about it. And so I wrote a letter about it. And this explains to the people, instead of me having to tell them individually, they can see it there. And once I explained it to the people that have spoken to it, they said, oh, okay, fair enough. So,
So the new director's been in place for about 6 months. Be fair to say him and the other staff are reviewing rollers and graders and plans. We'll probably come with a more concrete proposal to probably at least a works committee fairly soon. I hope I'm not paraphrasing you too much. But yeah, but nonetheless, we can put in the newsletter what we do now. Thank you. Councillor Taylor, your question has been answered satisfactorily.
It has, thank you.
Yeah. Matt, do you want to add anything while we're on that subject? Are we going to go meeting the timeframes and?
Yeah, through the, it's a bit difficult to put any numbers or facts on it at the moment. It's still quite open. We haven't had a formal response from the contractor we spoke to about an itemised delivery or staged process as yet. I guess the risk is the delivery timeframes with regards to the funding milestones, but I'm pretty confident we'll still be able to work within those. It's not going to be easy, but it's something we're just going to have to manage and work through. I'm hoping we'll have something done in the new year, but at this stage, it's really difficult to put a figure on it. It is certainly a risk, but it's something that, yeah, as I said, we just need to continually work through and try and deliver the milestone of the funding. Funding agreement.
Two questions. I'll start with Councillor Lang first, though.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Question to staff and the CEO: do we fall back on selling those blocks of land that were proposed to be sold to, in fact, fund the development of this reserve? Have those blocks yet been put back on the market?
So Mayor, the answer to the last part of the question is no, they aren't back on the market. And I think I might have mentioned at another meeting that they will now sit there until we do the growth strategy to look at what, but if there is an appetite in the chamber to put them on the market, we can certainly do that.
Omand.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to thank Councillor Taylor for raising these questions. I've heard concerns from the local residents down there about the uncertainty and where we're going on it. And through the chair to the Director of Roads and Assets, Infrastructure, we're going to have it anticipated down into stages components, Matt. So are we, I think it's paramount that in the first stage, constructions of the toilets would happen. Would that be right?
Through the Mayor, that isn't the case at this stage. The toilets will be assessed as a component of the entire project, and we'll look at the entire project as a whole and more than likely workshop what is in and what is out for the money that we currently have. If that decision is the toilets, then that will be the case, but that will be a decision of the chamber.
May I keep continuing, Mr. Mayor?
Yes, certainly.
Through the chair again to the Director and to the chamber. Well, I've been hearing complaints about the boat ramp being well patronised, and I would say Clayton's toilet has been well patronised, and there's been complaints about people, not doing the right thing. And maybe at least council could consider putting some signage to direct people up to Pandaringa toilets, because it's becoming a problem apparently. Thank you.
Mayor, we can do that.
Okay, that's possible. I think Councillor Bland.
My question is really around discussions and perhaps through to the CEO. Have we talked to anyone from the Murray-Darling Basin in relation to the funding? Because we've had funding from them before. So have we ascertained how hard that will be?
Slippage is generally not a problem, but the expansion of the grant probably is. So whichever way, we probably will be able to get some consideration to extend the grant period, but we don't think that there's any appetite generally to expand the grant. So that's why we have to go through the process of what's in, what's out.
Yeah, I haven't, through you, Mr. Mayor, I have no problem with that. It's just that sometimes we need to flag that we might be running behind and that's been very generous in the past.
Okay, nothing further? Okay, we move on to item 5.2, questions without notice, councillors. Councillor Jensch first.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I'd like to thank the CEO for the information in regards to COVID vaccination status of this council area last week. I have had a number of conversations from various residents here in Taylor Bend who are unvaccinated and some that are, and they are interested in the current state of play, particularly with the testing station at the other northern end of town. Is council, the questions are basically, is council on the up and up? We have no problems, and we obviously have things in train if things start to go.
Go where?
Go
On the up and
south
up,
with people
councillor.
becoming infected. What are we going to do? It's just that the station has been extremely well patronised in recent times. So the community people are wondering.
To you, Mayor. I'm not quite sure of the question, Councillor Jensch.
And that in essence, we have, I presume, a plan in place, both from this council's point of view to continue offering service to the community, but also to assist SA Health and whoever as things potentially progress in a negative way.
So two parts to the question. If SA Health come to us and ask for assistance, we will. To date, that hasn't happened. And my understanding across most of South Australia is that South Australia Health is fairly self-sufficient.
Yep.
And generally it's South Australian Health and SAPOL rather than local government. We, as I've mentioned before, follow the directions of SA Health in whatever we need to do. And then internally, we're looking at a COVID policy in terms of not mandating it, but strongly encouraging staff. And then looking at, from a risk-based approach, how do we ensure that we maintain the safety of staff and the public who use our facilities?
Thank you. Yes, I did. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. To the CEO, council has apparently a facility on 2nd Avenue located near the Taylor Bend depot, and in there is where we keep our records. And apparently I've had a request from someone in the community because some of those records are non-council, just general historian items, and they want to know if they could, or what's the procedure to go and view them, and if someone from the historical group would like to do that. And they made inquiries before, but they were not really corroborated from council. Is what goes on.
That's what you meant. We've had other people come and approach, and they're more than welcome. We do that. We sit down with them. There is a lot of stuff in that shed. But I think it's the man from Meningie, I can't remember his name, but has also been interested from a historical perspective. And we are so in the process, slowly but surely, doing whatever culling needs to be made and getting them into some order. But if somebody has an interest in a particular issue, just ask them to please contact.
What I wanted to hear. Very good.
We're on questions without notice, councillors. There being no more, we move on. Item 6.1 is my Mayor's report, councillors. I just, on the 16th of December, I did not attend that Murray Bridge catch up with the State Member of Parliament. Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Unfortunately, I would have loved to got to the Council Volunteers Christmas lunch at Meningie. Maybe you could enlighten us, please.
Well, thank you. And, you know, like all of us councillors, we're busy like everyone, and so I don't expect all of us to be at everything. But we had a lovely afternoon or luncheon yesterday at the Meningie Bowling Club, and the community development staff did a quiz, which had a few trap questions in it. Two cemeteries at Sherlock, which was a lovely trip. I was disappointed some people could not remember the year the council amalgamated. Very surprising to me. Someone said, when close wasn't good enough, I was there. Councillor Yench was there. You were there. And a lovely day. And as you would know, that was to acknowledge council's volunteers, the direct volunteers of council. And I think there was an estimate of well over $1 million per year of community help that's given. Which is much appreciated. So, nice day. It was a lovely day at Meningie, I can tell you.
I'm glad it went well.
Councillor Bland was one of the attendees and she has a question.
A question, but I'd actually just like to acknowledge the staff and the effort that they put in to make it such a welcoming and lovely day. They did a great job of setting it up, and I think it was much appreciated by the volunteers.
Certainly was.
Mr. Mayor, there's just one question I'd like to ask. What was the final answer?
What was the final answer on which question?
What is the mayor's occupation?
Well, the correct answer was farmer.
Oh. But I saw a whinging farmer there, but I didn't know if that was it.
Well, that would be deemed to be correct answer about bill paying time of each month, I would think. But,
okay.
Farmer is a very broad word I've worked out in my life. So yes, that was one of the answers, one of the trick questions I thought. Yeah, no, it was a lovely day. Oh, sorry. Well, sorry, his screen's down here. Councillor Lang. Sorry.
Yes, Mr. Mayor, I just wonder if you can give us a brief update on what's going on with the RAP meeting so far. Who's in attendance, representing the various groups, and what's been discussed at this early stage?
You were there. So I'll get the CEO to answer. Yeah, we had a meeting only last week. Yeah.
So the RAP has staff, councillors. We have an invite to welcome, but at this point we haven't had a welcome representative, and we've had a NAC representative, and the draft has been circulated. So with the Reconciliation Australia process, generally the first draft will go to them, remembering that this RAP is a reflective one, which is really basically an internal audit of what happens now and where we think we can put our energies into the future. Tim Hartman came along and gave quite an update of just what's happening in his world, which we also use in terms of the draft. So that draft will now go to Reconciliation Australia and come back 9 times out of 10 with some comments that will, and the working party will get together again. It will go for circulation. And so that process continues probably 2 or 3 times.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions on my report? Thank you. Only other councillors report this month is Councillor Roundtree. You want to add anything?
No.
Okay. We move on to 7.1. It's a notice of motion into. Councillor Roundtree, you wish to move it as it is in the agenda, or?
Yes, please, Mayor.
So Councillor Roundtree moves and Councillor Taylor I'm taking as the seconder. And I'll read it out. The Chief Executive Officer invite both Mr Tony Payson, who's our federal member, and Mr Nick McBride, MP, who's a state member for McKillop, to a meeting in chamber with representatives from the Meningie, Tintinara and Coombeduke area schools to hear from them about how the school bus route changes and reductions are impacting on rural state schools. You want to speak to your motion, Councillor?
Yeah, so in the explanation or the answer given from the CEO, you're suggesting that we don't worry about inviting the federal minister at this point.
Federal member.
Sorry, federal member.
Minister will be a stretch, yeah.
Yeah, that is a stretch. My only concern was, and I don't know whether this is correct or not, is there an opportunity for the federal government to assist the state government with funding for schools? And that's why I thought maybe he might benefit from listening to what is happening in his electorate, that there may be something that federally could assist the states with this issue. So if you don't think it's appropriate in the first stage, we won't, but that's why I included him in there.
Through you, Mayor, I've already spoken to Nick McBride and he's happy in the new year with the schools if they're interested.
Yep.
What I would suggest is that we do that meeting first and then we flag with the federal member that this work is happening. Doesn't want to have any input into it.
Okay. Well, in that case, I'm happy to remove his name from the motion and just make it state member for McKillop.
We just start with this, removing the first part with
Just the
Tony
first
Pace's
part.
name in.
Yeah. just-
Okay. I'm second, happy with that.
Yes.
The second, I wish to speak.
My only concern was the length of time it might take to get Nick McBride here and when the state election might take place.
So I spoke to him, I spoke to him when councillor Roundtree's motion came in to see, first of all, was he even interested in, and had he done anything? I was more interested, had he done anything in this area, because I didn't want to step on his toes. Even though there'll be a caretaker government coming in soon, this type of activity and discussion is more than appropriate to have with the schools. It'll just be, if we want the Education Department to act at some point prior to the election, it might get a little untidy in terms of the timing. But I think having the meeting, and he was quite happy to do it in the new year, he didn't see any impediment to that.
Thank you.
You want to add a question or something?
I just would like, and it probably wasn't clear, and maybe in the background that, or it maybe was, if we want a community strategy for this district, if we don't include how we will educate children in this district, our community strategy is going to fail, because there'll be parents that can't come here because we don't have schools. The schools starting to get less and less, and you start amalgamating, becomes a big problem. So I just think this in some ways is actually all part of our community vision project in enabling schools to grow in our district and not shrink.
Councillor, I'm going to go with Councillor Bland, I think, next.
I think I agree with councillor Roundtree, and that if we don't have something, but also make the rules on it more flexible. And I'll give you an example of which school or bus route was paid for by the school to keep it open, because they were short one child. Otherwise, they were going to close it. That meant all the rest would have had to work out. And if you read councillor Roundtree's, it certainly does not reimburse rural families enough to sacrifice to coming to town all the time, nor mostly with working parents these days to make ends meet. It's nearly impossible. So I agree with councillor Roundtree on these. It is a problem.
Councillor Arthur.
I just make the comment that it's a good conversation point to start off with, because it's not happening just here. It's happening all over the state.
Mhm.
And as you know, if you live in the rural situation, you're tended to be forgotten about. And it's probably a little bit annoying too that they're tending now to subsidise some of these private schools buses that go the people that should be in the public school system and transporting to private school without naming anyone. So I think it's a great idea to get a conversation started.
I might just add at this point that there is a mention of a private school in this background which wasn't supposed to be there, and we'll be deleting it out of the public record. Hypo, any other councillors wishing to add to this debate? You'll close, Councillor Roundtree.
I'll close it.
The motion is not as agreed, as it's on the screen, which just deletes the federal member out of original motion. Everyone understand that? I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. You've got a second one in a similar vein, Councillor.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. I think what the Chief Executive Officer has explained as far as process goes makes sense, and I'm happy to withdraw that motion at this point.
Okay, so you're withdrawing it at this
Well,
point.
can I lay it on the table so it's separated, or should I withdraw it?
No, suggest that you withdraw it, but what we might do, councillor, is also with the set of questions that you've had, or topics, we will send that off to the Education Department in the meantime for some sort of comment. So that will supplement the discussion we have with Nick McBride as well. So we can sort of do it in two parts.
Okay.
We don't need so through you, Mayor, we really don't need a motion to do that. We can do that anyway.
I think the relevant part about this one was looking at the amount of money that is paid to families who do transport children, that it is woefully inept of what it is actually costing them to get their kids to school. Now, I know you don't have to pay families to get kids to school and all those things, but parents are actually I believe this is still the case, and I'm not in the system, so I don't know, but I believe Centrelink payments can be affected too if children don't go to school. And so it's a bit of a double-edged sword. It's going to cost you a lot of money to get them there, and if you don't send your children, it can affect payments from Centrelink if you're on broadband payments. So it's a very important, touchy subject.
So through you, Mayor, could I suggest that you either lay it on the table or we just withdraw it? But I think the discussion with Nick McBride will inform what lobbying strategies we need with the state. And one of them will be around the incentives and the reimbursements, I would imagine.
I'll withdraw the motion.
Oh, thank you. And earlier this year, we did meet with the Director of Education. It was part of a broad discussion. This was part of it. It is probably obvious now that we need to have political lobbying around this subject, whoever wins the state election. It's in the last 2 or 3 years, the changes in school bus routes have been quite abrupt and given some families a lot of grief.
Maybe the MRLGA may be of interest as well.
Maybe. Yes. Okay. Thank you for that. I move to 7.1 motions without notice, councillors.
Mr. Mayor, on that, do you?
Question on the motion without notice.
The question is whether you like a motion, and that is in relation to us taking it to the MRLGA. I agree with the CEO. Do you want it actually on the books that we formally take it to the MRLGA?
Well,
Maybe after.
maybe after our meeting. Maybe after our meeting with state member.
Okay.
I think we're prudent to start the process at that point.
Can I, through you, Mayor, just add, we don't have a lot of time for these sorts of things. If this is going to be 2-3 years down the track before some action happens, that could be, we could see our baskets disappear, or at least definitely one I know of will disappear.
Yeah, I'm aware of that.
Time is of the essence. I don't want to see every meeting we just push it out and push it out and push it out, because
I think we've moved from a reactive, they've taken our bus route, to a policy position though. And I think that was the message I got from the director, basically, that he operates within the policy. Councillor Yench.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I actually agree with Councillor Roundtree. I think we need to move on this post haste because we have an election coming up. We also need to get the other council areas in our region activated on this. If we wait another month or 2 months, it will then be another month or 2 months before they become activated.
Yeah.
Irrespective of timing, I think we should be raising this and therefore sending a motion, basically a motion to have this go to them.
How about we come back to motions without notice around this subject later in the day when people have got time to think about an appropriate motion. Get around that. Okay, I'm still on motions without notice of any other version. There is none. Item 8, Office of the Chief Executive Officer. Number 1, the Local Roads and Community Infrastructure Program Phase 3. Phase 3, there is a recommendation, Council. Does Council want to have a CEO and the Director perhaps give us an explanation of what this means first, please?
Remember, councillors, when we had the briefing a week or so ago around activity, and also draw your minds back to the budget discussions. The first 3 figures there, this particular RCIP is in 2 tranches. The 1.5 is divided into 750, 700, loosely around that. And so the first 3 amounts are already contained in the budget documents, and we have parked the decision to make the next 3 750, and that's where you'll see we've made a recommendation around 3 other parts in what that needs to be spent on, based on the amount of information we have on each of the projects that we gave you a demonstration or a presentation on a couple of weeks ago.
Does everyone understand what this means?
This is another 750.
This is the second half of
The second half.
the second half of
750.
of the third tranche. I'll start with Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Roundtree.
Through you, Mayor. So Tail and Bend Train Park upgrade. So there's something else on this issue, which is a lot more than 100,000. So what specifically are we talking about in this project?
Yeah, through you, Mayor. The 100,000 is for just the fence and the concrete plinth, which is part of council's requirement to do renewal work on a fence that is no longer fit for purpose. The other components within the Tail and Bend playground precinct, which is in a later report in council, are for upgrade projects. So it's projects that are, I suppose, discretionary spends. So this is a renewal of an existing asset.
We think that with the 100,000, and you're right, Councillor Taylor, the whole project for the park is probably in the realm of about 340, I think, from memory. But if we have the 100 for the fence, we may also use that for leverage to get some other grants that could help with the 340, if that's the way that particular report goes in this meeting. So the 100 can be used as a standalone for the fence, but I suspect we'll also use it as leverage for one of the state grants around open spaces or something early in the year.
I was confused too.
Yeah, that was my question as well.
Councillor Bland.
Just for the sake of clarity in this meeting, for both 7 Mile and Italics, can we just give an overview of what that will actually do?
If you agree to this motion, Director will give you the answer.
Through you, Mayor, the 7 Mile Road, $300,000 is for the ceiling. So of the section from Mina back to the Princess Highway, the pavement construction is already in the budget. So this is to make it a sealed road surface. The Potalic Road, 250,000 is an allocation to go towards the reconstruction of part of Potalic Road as part of our sealed road renewal program, which will occur in the first half of next calendar year.
Thank you.
Councillor Arthur, are you just playing with the pen or you're gripping it very hard?
My question is to the CEO. The Carcooma Road aspect was the amount we had to put in the budget anyway this year. Now, you made a statement some time ago that we wouldn't use grant money to reduce the amount that council had to put in. That's exactly what's happened here. Is there any reason why?
Because this is different grant money, to be honest. It's not specifically for roads, but it is one we can use for Carcooma Road. Carcooma Road is a road that is probably, the work that we're going to do there is by far and away more than what we would normally put in the budget.
Okay, councillors, we need someone to move a motion. Oh,
We're all happy to move it.
I've got to do it this way. I've just decided. It wasn't a Christmas lotto with everyone having their hand up. It's going to be moved by Councillor Roundtree and seconded by Councillor Hill, actually, I've decided. The recommendation as it reads, councillors, is that right? You wish to speak to it?
No, I don't.
Councillor Hill, you're happy with that? Is there any debate at all? Okay. Debate is closed. I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously, councillors. Thank you. Council policy item 9 review this month. Number 10. Section 41 committees and Section 40 subsidiaries. Audit and Risk Committee meeting. Yeah, I've got a total disaster. Minutes of the meeting on the 16th of November. I'll move that way, please. Councillor Roundtree is moving. Councillor Bland is the second. Is there any discussion around those minutes?
Just a quick question regarding info. How's the information technology project going along? Is it running to schedule?
For you, Mayor, and
We'll ask the
director,
corporate
but
community.
we are on track. Staff are incredibly busy. 1st of February is D-Day. We've finished the migration for the IT system, which, as you remember, we did 2 IT things this time at once. So we've moved our all of our software and all of our hardware from Sydney to our satellite provider, and that's finished that transition, touch wood. And the transition to the new business system is well and truly underway as staff in that area go through over 2,000 lines of information from the finance and put it into the new system. And the 1st of February is the D-Day. So we're starting to do some training with staff and to be ready for that. Miles, would you like to add anything?
No, I can't add anything to that.
And sorry if people are indulging over the Councillor Bland's provided shortbread. It's very nice.
Is that a hint? Not more?
No, I don't need any more or want any more, Councillor. Enjoying the peace I have. Is there any other questions? Okay. I will put the motion that the council receive the minutes of the Audit and Risk Committee. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, Infrastructure and Assets Committee of the 7th of December. I think Councillor Qualman, you've got your hand up. Is that a question or a move?
I'm moving, thank you.
Moving. Councillor Bland, are you the seconder?
Yes.
Sorry I had to leave the meeting early and I was most unwell. I had a road inspection of Councillor Harper's favourite road, Carcooma, while I was unwell.
Could I just ask if the CEO, if the committee did not make any recommendations or required decision by council, except for a report in January, but there was one motion was regarding the report to be prepared for the February meeting regarding the council, quite a expansive report on the council grader rollers. And this only makes mention of the purchase of the plant and equipment that would be presented to the February meeting for consideration.
Get the director to sort of use.
Sorry, Councillor Arthur, which motion, is there any?
00921 was moved that the report be prepared to February meeting regarding council graders.
Yes.
The report to include but not restricted to the following, blah, blah, blah. It's as if that's been missed out.
Through you, Mayor, sorry, Ash, what did you say?
Through you, Mayor, that was taken to be for the commission meeting, the report to the commission.
Not to the council meeting, but to the actual INA committee
February
again.
meeting of the committee.
Yeah.
That's the way I'd read it.
Haven't we been told that these things now come out and go into an action list, so that shouldn't that be in the action list instead of carrying forward for all the minutes? It would appear that with what is written here, that the only thing of consequence was the approach to the stage 2 of the 21-22 plan.
Explain what happens to committee now. What committee actions?
I just thought those 2 items in particular, because they were both motions, should be included. Motions to be actions.
Through you, Mayor. Director, do you have any more recollection of that? So you will take that on notice, Councillor, and follow up to make sure that first of all, the minutes reflect the conversation, and second, that we haven't been remiss in anything.
Through
Thank you.
Mayor, I recall the question and the tasks, but my recollection was it was to go to the next INA meeting, but
We'll follow up.
at any stage, to be honest.
Question, Mr. Chair.
Certainly, Councillor.
I don't know if you can see me or not.
Yeah,
Yes,
you're close.
Questions without notice. We have responses that the Director, mostly of Roads and Infrastructures, provide a response. We, as a council, I'm sure we passed a motion not that long back that the answers actually be included in full for those who don't attend these meetings, the other councillors. I would like to see some answers, some solid answers as to what the responses are. What's the problem there?
Yeah.
I don't think that was the resolution, Councillor. I think that there was a consensus that how they were presented now was the formal way of doing it. There was no, it's my understanding, but somebody correct me if I'm wrong, that the way the answers are presented here to the questions was how it was recorded.
The councillor, You raised an important point about whether we should record the answers. Perhaps I might have a discussion with the CEO around, because the issue would be this is the only committee which is not a full council, whereas finance is a full council. So some councillors are unaware when they read this what the answer was. I've got 3 other hands up to assist you. I'm going to start with Councillor Roundtree.
I actually agree with Councillor. I felt that we did have a conversation about this. Sorry, we did have a conversation about this because for that very reason, when you write the CEO, and it's been my bugbear from the day I joined council, are words the CEO gave a response. And if you weren't at that meeting or even an apology, you've got no idea what was said and you're asked to pass minutes, don't know what the answer was. So I think we did raise it. I don't know whether it was ever formalised into a motion, but I know it was discussed that we would prefer to see a bit more detail put into these minutes, but I don't know if it was an actual motion because it would show up on our list.
Certainly. I'll go to, well, I'm aware of this. There's been a discussion around this. I'm unsure if there's been a motion. Councillor Taylor's next.
Through you, Mayor. It's a little bit difficult when the meeting is on the road, but given that most of the meetings should be recorded, or they can be, if some of the meetings are not recorded, perhaps they should be recorded. If there's something specific then that a councillor wants to check up on, they can refer themselves to the recording. If the meeting is on the road, would it be prudent to just have a voice recording of the meeting? So, for example, this one was away from home, wasn't it? So someone could record it on their phone, and then if there's a specific question around something that's contained in the minutes, it could be transcribed.
Yep. Okay. This we're probably dealing with what we call the new Act and what changes there might be and the requirements of the present Act and what's realistic to put in here. Councillor Qualman, you want to add to this?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm pretty well all the same as what's been spoken, and I find that this new IT stuff and recording is beneficial because before you used to read the minutes and it just says a response, but now if it's recorded, you hear the whole reply. Yeah, it's good.
I think I'll have a discussion with the CEO and the director around how we tighten this up a bit and within the confines of the Act. What I might say for members of the committee, and I might say about any motions, is they're better off being lodged formally prior to the meeting, as much as that's structurally hard. For the committee, it's good to have more flow, something serious. You can either speak to the CEO beforehand or move it as a motion in committee. What I would say. Okay. Councillor Arthur, you're chair of the committee.
Yes, just final. Only the Act, motion without notice doesn't have to have a reply recorded unless
question without notice.
The council moves to be that way.
Yeah.
That means we have to move a motion that all be recorded. Since we've been recording these, it's been quite easy to go back, although sometimes it takes a long time to get back the hour and 29 minutes into the meeting when it was on. But you have, but with that particular one, you don't. But all the others, it's as if they're recorded at any rate, a question without notice. So it's probably only relevant to Infrastructure and Assets Committee or any other committee that we don't record the process.
All right, so we'll have a bit of a discussion around the tightening up or a differing procedure in relation to the area. Thank you, Councillor. So half answers your question, I believe.
Sorry, I'm getting half. I got really bad audio. I don't know what's going on. I sent a message, but nothing's been looked at yet. Yes, it is under the LGA, and I understand all that. Generally, that is put down for a general meeting as we're having today, where everyone is present. With the questions with notice, you can ask in the committee for a motion for the response to be recorded. Is there some way that we can actually put it down as an all-encompassing motion so that responses are recorded correctly? So, for example, I was very interested. Councillor Ban had a comment in regard to marking of car parks on the Princess Highway in Menengi. I'm a Lakes Ward member. I have no idea what she's talking about. So it'd be interesting to know what's going on.
I think that's what she was asking. So we'll have a look at how we can, as a council internal procedure around meeting procedures, we can add things from memory. We just want to check with the new act that hasn't changed, I would say. Okay, I'm going to take that as we're going to deal with that.
Yeah.
We still have, Councillor Coleman and Bland moved that minutes of that meeting. I don't think I've taken a vote yet. Is there any other questions around it? Being none, item 2, because you'll close debate, councillor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Upton District Soldiers Memorial Swimming Pool and Caravan Park Committee minutes for the meeting on the 29th of November. And on Australia Day, councillors, we will be having our award to our Young Citizen of the Year at the Canoe Pool. I think that's now been formalised on the Australia Day itself. Councillor Roundtree.
I'm happy to move the motion, but also have a couple of queries as well.
Right, you moving. Is there a seconder? Councillor Hill. Just Councillor Ling, we'll take a break very soon because we want to work on your audio. Councillor.
I missed what you said there, Mayor.
Yeah, I know. That's why we're going to take a break.
You see me grimacing.
Yeah, Councillor Roundtree.
Thank you. So a couple of questions. With the official opening, that's going to be the Australia Day.
No,
it's not.
Not at this stage.
So we're just going to do Australia Day presentation to the winner at the event, and that's when the sausage sizzle and all of that will be. Okay, and then the official opening will be another time when
we've been trying to get the federal member there since the federal government funded both parts of the upgrade, but that's just not possible on Australia Day.
That's all right. So long as we do Australia Day on Australia Day, I think that's the main thing.
Staff have been working very hard on that, but we just can't make it come together.
My second question is regarding the fees. It was raised with me that the fees had gone up, but I thought we had agreed at our previous meeting, and I was trying to find it important in the short time frame, but we agreed to leave the fees and charges the same for this financial year. And then they've noticed that their pool fees have gone up, and they were like, why have they gone up? Because I thought we had agreed to keep them the same, but I might be wrong there.
So you may, the fees and charges were in the fees and charges that were adopted by budget.
Yeah.
I'll have to check, but I thought there was only marginal, if anything, they would have went up by the CPI only, and some of them had marginally increased. But we didn't show you the fees and charges. I'll have a look and I can send you a comparison of the change was not significant, but they did change.
Through email, I thought the discussion we had was due to COVID, we would leave them the same again, and so that they shouldn't have gone up at all for all of the fees and charges.
So you may, I will pull out the fees and charges that was adopted, and I'll send you a comparison of what.
Okay, that would be great. I wasn't 100% convinced either way of that one. So.
Your other question was yet too?
No, that was my second one.
Okay, is there any other discussion around these minutes? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried unanimously. Councillors, I'm just going to take a 10-minute break because we're going to try and deal with Councillor Leng's audio that he can't hear us clearly. Thank you.
Oh, coffee don't raise it.
357.
I'm having audio trouble listening. I have no idea what's going on. So given a 10-minute break, we'll also try and rectify the problem.
Councillor Ling, we've got you back. Any better? Thank you. We'll just resume the meeting at 4:08, councillors. In relation to the fees and charges, councillor. Now proceeding to the CEO. Sorry, councillor.
I've still got the same problem. Audio problem's still there.
Can you hear it all?
Yeah, I'm getting most of it, but it's just occasionally it goes like a tin can, can't hear a thing.
Our technical person thought he had it resolved, so we'll speak to him again, but we will continue. Just in relation to Canal and swimming pool charges, so just give a quick outline of those minor increases.
So, through you, Mayor, it was the CPI attached to them. There was no actual increase apart from the CPI, and they were marginal. So, for instance, a day pass went from $5.50 to $5.60. The seasonal ticket for a family went from $180 to $180. The other change was extra person season ticket, $15 to $15.20. So they were not huge changes. We've already had new signage put up at the pool about 4 weeks ago, and the issue was resolved, was my understanding.
Okay. Item 4 is Murray Lands and Riverlands Local Government Association minutes of the meeting held on the 22nd of October. Councillor Corman, you're moving that way. You're a seconder. Councillor Taylor, any discussion around those minutes? There being none, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. 11.1, intention to grant lease to the Tailem for the Tailem Bend Oval. Councillor Taylor and Qualman, are you the moving and seconding?
Yes, Mayor.
Speak to it, councillor.
No, not yet.
Not yet. Councillor Qualman, you wish to speak to the station.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Is 73 Trevina Terrace actually correct?
In the background part of the text, is that what you said? Tailem Bend Oval and surround is located at 73 Trevina Terrace.
Yes.
That might be in an old record because it's
Correct.
now Granites Road, I think.
Correct.
What you were saying.
Through you, Mayor. Well, if the name has changed to Granite Road, we'll change that.
Anyone else want to speak to the recommendation and around this change, which should allow the community combined sporting and recreation hub to take over that lease and go for some grants? Got Councillor Ling on the screen. Anyone else? Councillor Taylor, you're going to close.
I just want to say that it's a positive move forward, especially the 21 plus 21 years. It gives some assurity to those who may be funding the grants that it's got longevity, and at the end of the day, it's just a lease. And if everything goes wrong, then it can be revoked, etc. So it's a real positive move forward for them. And I will close.
Thank you. And we thank the Tailem Bend Football Club for, I suppose, relinquishing their position in this case. Okay, councillors, I'll put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 2, Audit and Risk Work Program Committee. I'll move that way, please. Councillor Taylor is the mover. There's a seconder. Councillor Bland. Any discussion, councillors? Being none, Councillor Roundtree.
I was just preempting, sorry.
You're preempting.
You asking everyone in favour?
Yes, I'm about to.
My hand was just going.
I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Number 12.1, Infrastructure and Assets. The Tailem Bend Playground Fencing and Potential Public Toilet Facility costs. I will emphasise that's what it is. Councillor Roundtree.
I have a question.
You can have a question.
Thank you. What does council get for $150,000 toilet? I ask because I don't think we actually need to have a parent room attached to that. If you're in the park and you're watching a child, and if you're in the park, you're actually there with the child, right? If you're watching a child, you're not in a breastfeeding room. If you want to feed, you're generally walking with your toddler, sitting in a seat near the toddler while you feed. So I'm just a bit concerned that maybe we've increased the cost too much when we possibly don't need to have a separate breastfeeding room at all. And I say this because on the weekend we were down at the Hendry Street Reserve Park, which is part of Marion Council, and I'd urge you to go and have a look at the Hendry Street playground. And that is a huge playground with loads of things to do. And they just have one very big toilet, which is unisex, parent toilet, disabled toilet, all in one, and a baby change facility in there as well. And on really busy days like the Sunday before Christmas, it was quite packed, but ordinarily that's actually more than enough. So perhaps the cost could be reduced without needing to have two rooms. I think it's a bit of overkill for that site.
Certainly. So I'd put it that in this respect, there's two minutes that drive this process. This is about the potential costs. We're not agreeing to fund. The toilet would be a potential budget item for the 22-23 budget year. Also, this entire strip of land is up as part of the streetscape review, which we are about to do. Out for market at the moment. So I don't think we're agreeing to anything, but the report is simply saying what the costs are, and I think what you say. I think the one thing we have found out, the director might add to this, is that it is possible to put a toilet there and drain it back to the swim system.
That's our initial investigation in that. That cost of approximately 55,000 wouldn't change, but absolutely the toilet and how that is made up is absolutely up for discussion, and most certainly could be reduced in cost by providing just one cubicle, as you explained.
Yep.
All right, Councillor Yench is the next question, then Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Firstly, I would like to move the motion.
The motion or a motion?
And I then have a question.
You move the motion. I might just see if I can find a seconder first. Councillor Roundtree,
I'm happy to second it. But I was not in comfort knowing that we aren't going to lock ourselves into a $150,000 toilet.
No, there's several processes going ahead. Councillor Yench, you can ask a question and then speak to your
associated with this. Thank you, Mr. Mayor.
Yeah.
I concur that it's only scoping, it's not committing council to any funds other than those that potentially the cost is. The other is that connection through you, Mr. Mayor, to the appropriate person, cost of connecting the toilet to the system. Connection point is where, and if possible, would the old CFS shed be a possibility to link in at the same time? Because it's an asset that does also require proper connection.
So, Councillor, I suppose there's two parts, but the CFS shed is an asset that may or may not be used as part of a streetscape plan. That's where that'll get picked up.
Yep.
And as I understand at the moment, the present CFS shed is not hooked. Is not hooked to the swim system, which is interesting in itself. So I suppose no decision has been made around anything at this stage in that area. I don't know if I answered your question. I don't know if it was a question. Are you speaking to your motion now? Thank you. Councillor Roundtree, you're the seconder.
No, I'm right for the moment. Thank you, Mayor.
Councillor Taylor.
Through you, Matt. So I would ask in point 3, the scoping, the change, what direction the toilet would take can be picked up with the toilet / parent room bit anyway. So that's quite wide in its scope. The other question was around the connection to the CWMS. Have you identified exactly how that pipework would run, or is that dependent on the eventual placement of where the toilet would be?
Through you, Mayor, it would depend on the placement of the toilet. The further south towards the CFS, existing CFS station you go, it may be more appropriate to connect in through somewhere on South Terrace. Whereas if it was closer to the bakery, it would be down Cypress Terrace. But the only main that runs through the town is down Murray Street. So whatever connection you used would need to cross Railway Terrace and then go down one of the side streets. The closer you are to connection point, obviously the better. So the positioning of the toilet is important. The last thing we want to have is a pumped system. A gravity system is obviously far better. If we've got a power failure, pump systems don't work. So the positioning of the toilet will be critical in consideration of the streetscape upgrade.
Further, Matt, so in the streetscaping report, when that is done, because we've got no idea yet as to the suggestions, which would be for where the what do you call it, the sort of mini skate ramp, basketball area, etc. That may be a play facility for older children, for example. Whether or not we actually keep the CFS building at all, or whether it's repurposed. Jumping the gun and thinking about a toilet here without thinking about future use for those areas further down Railway Terrace. I appreciate that a toilet is a necessity for this area. I'm just thinking ahead in that, do we think about one toilet? Do we think about two toilets, depending on what goes further down? Or do we just treat this as an independent, a completely separate area?
Well, I'll have a go. So at this stage, it's all very much undecided. You would remember that there's two issues surrounding the present CFS, that old CFS station now, around both PFAS and asbestos too, that also have to be dealt with. And if your building may give the illusion of being a brick building, but it's a garage at the end of the day.
Mm.
So they have to be built into proposal, and that was the area for the toilet. There's some consideration maybe given to a different dump point in this town as well. In that scenario, I think this motion doesn't tie us to anything except assisting the streetscape proposal around some costs around a toilet.
Mm.
I might note that the next item's around the Canoe public toilets, which has been a lot of discussion. So I don't see us as committing to anything except giving some pretty good base costs to the people who are going to help us with the streetscape. So we don't all of a sudden find ourselves with another toilet block at Tail and Bend, and perhaps haven't dealt with Canoe and public toilets, or dare I say, councillors, and I'm sure it'll come up soon, the Salt Creek ones.
Mm-hmm.
Councillor Bland.
Mr Mayor, I do take on your point about that, and I take on Councillor Taylor's point. So I'm happy to receive and note the report at this point in time, but I'm concerned about moving further ahead without a full streetscape process being done. I'm also concerned that you're quite right, that Alpine toilets will come up, Salt Creek will come up, and there are a number of other buildings that we have that fell off the list last time in the budget where we received grant money that haven't been yet addressed. So I'm a bit concerned that we're heading down the track of more toilets, that we haven't fixed the ones we already are responsible for to some degree. So I take the point that this is lovely to have, and I'd like to see it in the future. We've got a few fish to fry first.
Certainly. Anyone else? Councillor Arthur.
Mr Mayor, are we sort of getting ahead of ourselves here with, aren't we doing a Tail and Bend streetscape? So isn't this part and parcel? So why make a special motion just for this? And it's quite interesting that, you know, it's been 12 years in council now, there's never been anything brought up about the toilet block down there until we knocked the one down here, which was actually further away than the new one. So, you know, like, it's got to be looked at as a whole. It's no good doing bits and pieces here and you find out your streetscape, you come back and it's entirely different. And the other thing is, you know, it's got to be a very conscious decision on if we take the CWS shed back. You know, there has got to be a community reason for using that, not just because we want to build up a portfolio that we have to look after, There's got to be a reason for it. Thank you.
Okay, I'm going to read the recommendation. Councillor Taylor, you got a question? You want to speak? I'm taking you've actually asked questions, so you want to speak for or against?
I'm going to speak for it.
Yeah.
I do believe that I initiated the original motion anyway regarding a toilet in the playground area, which is sort of may encompass the extra fencing and a roof over the train, which is fine. But I just wanted to point out that obviously we're doing two things in tandem with the streetscape, and therefore both go hand in hand. That's not to say this should not proceed. Thank you.
All right, so I'm coming to you, councillor. I'm just going to read the recommendation for everyone's benefit. So we receive and note the report. We undertake scoping delivery of the renewal works associated with the fencing and plinth replacement as part of the 22-23 building and community facilities renewal program. In other words, for budget. Scope the works associated with the delivery of a new public amenity. And the fourth part is note that the third-party funding opportunities will be actively sought to supplement council's source funding to deliver part or all of the proposed works. And we noticed from earlier discussion with other councillors around an allocation, last round of local community infrastructure and roads program, we did allocate for the fence. About 2.5 years ago, had a deputation or a posse of the Salem Bend primary school kids who come here, and option 2 after a new hospital was the fence around the playground, which is considerable debate. So it was particularly around the back fence of the playground, which they felt they could jump out farther the trains too closely at. So it's been under some consideration for some time around the fence of the playground, not as much as anything else. Anyone else except Councillor Yench? Councillor Qualman.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I concur with a lot of the conversation that's been going on, and as some of you other members, you would have heard from the community. I've heard for myself about having another, not a tiles mahal, but at least a single berth toilet down there at near the CFS shed, and I wonder, it wouldn't be that hard, the CWMS connection, if it were to be expanded, would still do the job, correct, Matt? Yes. And so, and I think this is all putting the pieces together, driving forward the streetscapes plan, and then we can move on and finally have that whole section from the railway line, the railway terrace from the station master's house down to the roundabout, looking like something in the heart of Salem Bend, all cleaned up, done.
Thank you, councillor. Is there anyone else apart from, we're going to go to councillor Yench, who'll close.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Look, in essence, we should be doing this because it falls within the streetscape plan. It's scoping something up. It's hand in hand. It will allow us to potentially go for grants as for the use of toilets room in the playground. That has been on the list for as long as I've been in local government. People have been asking for this, and the reason in the past has been twofold. One is the toilets were going to be replaced on the other end, and the other is the cost of the infrastructure in the ground. If we are going to look at this seriously, and I believe we should also be looking at CFS seriously as what is the community use and needs for that building. If it is going to have a life, then it needs toilet. So it's big picture stuff. This allows us to get going and look at the whole project in its entirety. Thank you.
Thank you, councillors. Recommendation is still as it reads in your agenda. I'm going to put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? It's carried. Carried with councillors against it being councillors Bland and Hill. The balance of the councillors, councillors Simmons, Yench, Qualman, Taylor, Roundtree, and councillor Arthur, you're in favour of that from my memory?
And me?
Councillor Lang.
I was just adding them up, Councillor. Councillor Lang, you're in favour of that proposal, I understand?
Yes.
Remains carried, councillors. We move on to number 2, the Canoe public toilets. There's the recommendation and report. Councillor Roundtree,
And I would like to talk to it as well. I've got a
you're going to
question
move
about
the
it.
motion, or
Yes,
you're
I'm going to move it.
move
and
it
then I
as it
have-
is at the moment?
As it is at the moment, but I will be looking to change it.
Councillor Taylor, you the seconder. Righto, Councillor Roundtree.
So I support point 1 and point 2, but when we get to point 3, since when have we been talking about putting a toilet at the Canalpin Silo rest area? As far as I knew, we were looking at putting a disability toilet into the existing toilet area, and I see under purpose, we're now talking about Canalpin Silo rest area. So what those words
Your question is, what is the
Why
current
this-
in vogue name for the present facility at Canalpin? Is it the Canalpin Silo Rest Area, or is it the Canalpin Public
Well, the
Toilets?
Canalpin Silo rest area is the Canalpin Silo rest area, which is next to the Canalpin Silos
Cafe.
near the cafe. It is completely opposite end to where the actual toilets are.
I think we've taken some liberties with the words.
It's the same
of
area?
One and the same.
Right, but I think we should remove rest Canalpin Silo, just put Canalpin rest area and take the word silo out.
Okay.
And then
That
I'm
is simple.
happy with it.
That has been dealt with out of 3, and you're still the same on that? Your other points are?
No, that was all, it's just really that threw me,
Okay.
thinking we were going to
No.
put a toilet down there.
No, there'll be one toilet block on the main road there. Councillor Taylor, you're the seconder.
I had the same. Matt,
Apart from that, you don't wish to speak to it?
No.
Any other councillors wish to speak to that recommendation or that motion? Councillor Yance?
Mr. Mayor, I'm in favour of the motion. It has been a project that has been long coming. Council in the past has tried to extend the life of this facility various ways, and in some points has been successful, in others less. So it's time to replace these as well. So I'm more than happy to support.
Okay, councillor, and councillors would be aware the principal problem is the capacity of the septic system, and people would note that with the closure of the last roadhouse at Canalpin, that really accelerated it being the principal public facility in Canalpin. I would note that we still have effectively a public toilet at the swimming pool all the time, refreshed and renewed. The CEO, you visited him a couple of days ago, was that next week?
No, last week.
Last week, so if people say
This
that
week.
this week, sorry, I've lost my weeks. But if people say that we have no other public toilets at Canalpin, there's always some available in the swimming pool building as public toilets as well.
Yep.
Any other councillors wish to add to the debate? Okay, you close, councillor.
Closed.
Okay, I put the motion. All those in favour? Those against? That's carried unanimously. Item 13 is petitions. We have nil. Item 14 is deputations, of which I have nil. Item 15 is public question time. And I have 3 questions that have been submitted and we will have answers for. So this, I presume, will incorporate this into the minutes, this thing. I think it's only fair that I actually read them out.
We need to move that the answers are recorded.
They'll be included in the minute.
They'll be, okay, thank you.
But it's going to take me a little bit of time, so bear with me. I hope, Councillor Lang, you can hear me, because
People
it's 3 separate questions.
It's on and off, but yes, at the moment.
Okay, so the 3 questions from Stephen Pake. The first one is Poltallic Road has last week had a contractor doing 16 test holes, which only 3 are in favourable areas previously marked out by someone from council, and not in good areas to the west of Poltallic Station Hill. He has asked the staff what marking out of most but not all failure areas was about, but he didn't know. Will the reports on each test hole be available and by the numbers marked on the road? So the answer from our director is council staff previously undertook to mark out pavement failures on Poltallic Road. This process clearly identified a high proportion of current surface and seal showing significant signs of failure, as well as signs of distress indicating potential failure in the near future. Due to the extreme extent of the maintenance, required, as indicated by the pavement markings, the decision was made to fast track the full renewal of Poltallic Road and avoid any sunk cost associated with undertaking temporary maintenance of a clearly failing pavement. Council recently approached the market through local government procurement using a selected tender process to engage a suitably qualified pavement specialist, enter into a design and construct contract for the full pavement reconstruction of that part of Poltallic Road. The project scope was to provide both a targeted pavement design and construction proposal for each of the remaining 13 segments, that's a total of 12 kilometres of Poltallic Road. A contract has now been executed and the geotechnical investigation has commenced, the results of which inform the contracted pavement designers what underlying soil structure needs to be accommodated and what treatment is required to achieve a 40+ year pavement design life. It is Council's intention to commence pavement renewal in the first half of 2022 and will be actively seeking third-party funding to leverage Council's current sealed road renewal budget of $1.2 million. It is likely the delivery of Poltallic Road will be a multi-year project, and once fully informed by the geotechnical investigation report and pavement design, the approach regarding ongoing short-term maintenance will be determined. But to answer the question, a detailed geotechnical investigation report and pavement design report can be made available. So when we receive that, that can be available and will probably be prudent. That's the first of the three questions. The second one, a recent Yarrandale Road unsealed road redo or resheet was undertaken by a council contractor which has laminated badly. Will the contractor be required to fix this poor repair at their expense? The answer, Director advised that a 3-kilometre section of Yarrandale Road was resheeted as part of the 2021 Capital Works program. The section commenced at a point 11.5 kilometres east of Menengi. Scope of work include the provision of up to 200 mils of deep unsealed pavement to a width of 9 metres, which is Council's standard specification for a renewal of a unsealed class 4A or 4B road. Materials used to complete this renewal project were sourced from a local quarry. It was found to be extremely low in clay content, resulting in a low plasticity index. As a result, some unravelling of the pavement material is not unexpected. The source of quality materials to maintain, renew and improve Council's road and transport infrastructure effectively continues to be a challenge, particularly in the southwestern sector of our council region, where materials are generally sandier with less clay. Ongoing monitoring of the section will continue. The third question is, back in the 27th of April 2021 at the Sherlock Hall, the Coorong Infrastructure and Assets Committee meeting was held, which this person attended, Stephen attended. The weed management plan was discussed. I've heard nothing further on this plan, he says. I believe council should have a weeds officer to be responsible for all council areas, be the go-to person to be held account if the job is or isn't done properly. Weeds need to be sprayed early, especially before seed set. So known areas need to be observed and sprayed when needed and followed up to make sure the desired kill is achieved and if some regermination has occurred. Cooch in sealed roads in township and country roads is becoming more prolific. When will something be done about this and what will it include, e.g. a policy or a public consultation? Director of Roads and Infrastructure has advised council staff undertake operational tasks in terms of service standards. These standards are in development phase, still following a change in approach and will be phased into operations over a period. Service standards will be developed for all council performed tasks with clear goals, objectives that are to be communicated with both external and internal staff, which is internal stakeholders. This will include the management of weeds on land under council's care and control. Service standards will be developed based on a hierarchy that considers risk, service quality, safety and feasibility. This process will enable council to provide higher level of service standard where it is needed most and improve efficiency in service delivery. Maintenance of road shoulders also being addressed in terms of service standards, including proactive slashing, spraying and/or shoulder verge maintenance. So there's the three questions and answers. I presume we'll transmit those answers directly to that ratepayer. It's inappropriate to ask questions of the questions. I might just ask the director, while we've got the opportunity, and since some of us have continued to be asked, around the median strip in Tail and Bend. Yes, that is a weed issue. How he is going with the Department of Infrastructure and Transport in tidying this up before we get really busy. How's that for a question without notice?
Thank you for the question there. The Tail and Bend median strip is an ongoing problem, as we all are aware. The contractor that is currently working for the department is obviously extremely busy with dealing with road surfaces and pavements. They have committed to slashing the Centre Island or median strip this week. They also committed to doing it last week. Unfortunately, on Friday, when there was a fire ban, they were unable to do it. And this week, I'm hoping it'll be done before Christmas. I've also written to DIT and asked them for or an indication of what their service standard is regarding the slashing, and also raised the opportunity to discuss council undertaking the maintenance work rather than DIT's contractor, which will enable us to control when and where it's done and to what standard. Obviously, it's a reputational risk, and people who drive through town and then see it as a council issue. At this point in time, our hands are in chains, basically. We aren't able to undertake any work on DIT roads without approval. So we'll continue to negotiate an outcome to hopefully one day take over the maintenance of that and potentially also the upgrade, which would be nice. So it's a battle and it's a challenge, but I'm sure a suitable outcome will occur in the future, provided that DIT are a little bit flexible and also their contractor who are contracted to do the works.
If we haven't heard from DIT by early in the new year, we'll make a time to actually go and visit them to talk about what are the options.
Thank you. Councillor Coleman, you just want to add something to that?
Oh, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd love to add something to it. All we hear is people going on about this meeting strip, and I don't blame them. You know, I walk around home and every day, and it's terrible when we talk about a growth strategy, and first thing you see when you come to town is all these weeds. It looks terrible. And plus the turn off at the filtration plant, I've had heaps of complaints. That's the dangerous intersection. They're doing 110 there, and people got a bad line of sight. So my question is then, Mr. Mayor, while I've got the floor, is that is it really much of a cost to council if we take over and do it?
So the principal issue, being a median strip, is traffic control.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, the amount of time that staff in the A&I department have spent on speaking to DIT about this issue would more than likely cost more than what the actual getting a staff member on a tractor or a slasher to do the work.
So let's get on with it. Yeah.
The CEO might add to this and we'll wind it up.
We'd love to get on with it, but we really do need to talk to them first.
Okay, I'm just going to take that. Councillor Yes, you just on that subject, just tidying it up, please.
Mr. Mayor, I concur totally with Councillor Cormann. I too have had a lot of people asking questions, and I have been clearly stating that council's hands are tied. We are doing our best to get these things cleaned up, but the scruffiness does need to be fixed. And, you know, when you look at further along the roads, the freeway mowing is stuffy in its own right because they don't pick up the rubbish when they mow. So these things do all come together. It's a bad look for us. So thank you, we're pressing on.
I'm just going to wind that up. I just added that, sorry, to the questions, but okay, can I revert back, Delith, to 7.1? I believe in motions without notice, we signalled we would go back once we had a motion formed up. Have you got it the one that's been lodged, please. This is in relation to school, Councillor Roundtree's motion.
I've given the information to the girls and I would like to move this motion.
Right, so I'm just waiting for it to, have you got it on the
Can we,
screen?
need to?
Oh, I thought you had it written down.
No, I'll check.
Well, I'll paraphrase it for you. We moved by Councillor Roundtree that the CEO raised the issue of declining country school bus services and its impact on the ongoing viability of public education facilities with the Marylands Riverlands LGA and or the LGA in general.
I'm happy to second that, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so I've got to Councillor Yench is the seconder. Councillor Roundtree, you want to move, you want to speak to your motion?
Yes, what I was saying is without having, and I think I said it before, without having some schools that are well funded with children and buses, we're not going to be able to grow this region because it's going to be one of our limiting factors. And I think we've got some schools at serious risk now, and I don't want to wait till January or February because it'll push it out. We'll make a meeting next month, it'll be March, then it'll be budget time, and this will just keep getting pushed out. And I think we've got a bit of a quiet time over the holiday period. I think if we can get onto them, get some meetings set up for early January and start getting this underway, because I think this is really crucial for our growth strategy in this region, that we get this stuff sorted. And at least, if nothing else, continue to make them aware that this is a problem. They'll be able to help us with lobbying. And in fact, the LGA, not even the MR-LGA, but the LGA in general, this is, as Councillor Arthur pointed out, this is a problem that affects the whole state, and I would suspect the whole country, with declining bus services in rural areas. And it's something we need to really, if we start it here in Coorong, we may get support from many other councils on this issue and finally get something done that will help our kids.
Okay,
Question?
question from Councillor Bland.
I'm assuming that we don't mean raised the issue. The CEO raised the issue as against that the CEO will raise the issue or raise.
Without the D.
Yeah.
Councillor Yench is the seconder.
Yeah, look, I'm happy with that, Mr. Mayor. I think we need to move on this post haste and probably CC in our local member as well.
Yep. Okay, anyone else wish to enter the debate? One's clear. The CEO raised the issue of declining country school bus services and its impact on the ongoing viability of public education facilities with the MR-LGA and or the LGA. You'll close, councillor.
Closed.
All right, I put the motion. All those in favour? The seconder was councillor Yench. Declare it carried unanimously. Councillors, I'm going to move straight to the information document, councillors. 15.
Two things. The meeting with, so the CEO's meetings and functions attended. There was a meeting on the 19th of November with Mr. Nick McBride. I wonder if you could elaborate on issues that were raised, maybe?
It was, through you, Mayor.
I was there.
The Mayor was there. It was a general catch-up. We talked a little bit about a whole range of things, really, and I'll have to struggle a bit to remember them.
That's all right.
But there was nothing specific. It was really about his preparation for coming in as the member for the whole of the district.
The candidate in the next election.
Well, I'm being optimistic. And man, I need help.
I'm sorry, I need help. I did.
There was nothing.
Go with a member for McKillop down to the local hotel afterwards to discuss things with the local public.
Yeah, all right.
There was nothing of specifically. It was
That's
really just
appropriate,
about the general state of affairs around the place.
Thank you.
And we look forward to the next successful candidate next election doing that, since we'll be, this council area will be entirely in the seat of McKillop.
Yeah. So my second issue I have is on page 28, and it's with regards to highway signage, tail and bend and surrounds attractions. It's the blue and brown sign. I think we have to be careful about promoting private businesses because either we do all of them or none of them. For instance, promoting the Bend Motorsport Park, which is great, but we have Old Taylor Town out here, which is really attractive for range reasons, and that's not on the signage. And I think that's been a long-standing attraction of Tailem Bend that's not on a sign like this. Now, I don't know whether another sign talks about Old Tailem Town or whether there was some way that you did it, but when we've got a private business like the Bend Motorsport Park, then we've got some council businesses, it could just be a problem in the future.
So, Councillor, yeah, I appreciate what you're saying. I was asked a question yesterday at the Volunteers Day about this. The challenge the staff have had, I think, is at what point outside of this town, at what distance, we have other attractions. That was what was described to me. There are some signs around Old Tailem Town that were put there by the department long ago. Perhaps they're looking a bit tired, but that was the challenge. And the question was around Pangarinda actually yesterday.
Well, that would also be a very good one to put on one of our signs, and that's a council one.
Yeah, but it's around, when are you outside of a Tailem Bend attraction?
Well, Old Tailem Town would be closer to Tailem Bend than the motorsport park.
Well, maybe. And that's a challenge.
It is.
We'll note that, councillor.
That's the only one you had?
Yes.
Right, Councillor Hill.
In regards to signage and promoting businesses, I mean, I do know that we do have a signage policy that where a private business wants to put up a finger post sign at their own costs, that can be applied for. But yeah, it is a bit of a juggling act as to who you promote in the area. I know driving up to the Barossa, just about every winery's got a brown tourism sign denoting where it's so we need to perhaps have a think about what we're going to be able, if we're looking at promoting this area as a tourism region, perhaps we need to look at what things can be promoted or what opportunities for private businesses to fund a sign.
I understand this sign upgrade's been fully paid for by someone else.
The state.
The state. So at that point we'd lose some lobbying power. But it's very good that they've done an upgrade, to be quite honest.
How did they then decide on the Lower Murray Canoe Trail Historic Rail Museum, what is the Historic Rail Museum? Is that the overhead radio? And what is Riverfront Reserves?
I'm not saying we didn't have a consultation role. I'm just saying that.
Did we have a consultation role?
We do. We asked for, so it's in our department upstairs. We work with the Murray Lakes and Coorong Alliance as well as SATC. So these are sort of a partnership arrangement that the state paid for. So we really do need to make sure that we have coverage.
It looks a bit dodgy. Dodgy is probably not the right word, but it just looks
No, it's not the right word, Councillor. Councillors Bland, then Taylor.
Inconsistent.
Okay, I'm going to start with signage since we're on that one as well. And I'm not going to argue about what's on these signs. I'm going to just make the statement that I don't feel at this point in time we're informed about this early enough, some of this signage. And secondly, I look at the Coorong sign turning on to Princess Highway, and to me there is at least ordinary. There's a national park, it says Coorong, and that is it. It says nothing else, and that's pointing down there. And you've just mentioned we have Pangarinda on that road, on that highway. Then you go down to a number of other sites, and there is absolutely nothing to say there is a potential tourism route. You've got Wellington, a whole range of stuff that could be directing down there.
That sign's immediately adjacent to the water filtration plant, is it? Or the lack of signage.
The lack of signage, there is no signage. It says Meningie, Coorong, and the only brown sign. My point is there's a lot of attractions down that road. And if we're dealing with tourism around this area and the Alliance, then we should be looking at all of that. And there should be money for that, no doubt, somewhere out there to assist, but we need to get it right. If you're coming from Meningie this way, it promotes the Murraylands. It doesn't promote here, it promotes the Murraylands. Am I right? I think I'm correct on that. So
is there a sign immediately south of the ferry road? Big sign like a more enhanced?
South, not particularly in relation to this area at all.
I'm going to take on board, we're going to need to have there's always difficult negotiations, and council remembers very early in this council, we did put some funding in to get the blue signs up for the motorsport park, which in my view probably ended up being quite accurate in describing where the place was. You around this subject or not?
On signage?
Yeah. Councillor Taylor, I presume we're around this subject.
Through you, Mayor. I disagree with what's on the sign, full stop, because the motorsport park has its own signage. It's pretty obvious. And people going to the motorsport park know where the motorsport park is. And the rest of it is not really, there's no detail around it. So Murray Coorong Trail, what does that mean? Unless there's a sign somewhere further on, or a stopping point somewhere further on, which gives details of what the Murray Coorong Trail is for external visitors. The Lower Murray Canoe Trail, well, that's interesting in itself. I pulled up at the canoe trail the other week and got told by a resident to get off. So
You didn't have a canoe?
I was in a canoe. I was in a
You and your
canoe, and it says canoe trail at this particular point, and I was told this is private land, which it isn't. So that's a problem, and there's no detail around it. Historic Rail Museum, where you can kind of figure that out because it says Tail and Bend to start with. Riverfront reserves.
I think the best thing to do is we might arrange a workshop around the descriptive nature of the state government's signage policy. I've been through this years ago, and they are reasonably prescribed around this, blue versus brown versus this versus that. It appears that we have some, what we feel aren't proper descriptions. Councillor, you're on the same subject.
Yes.
You may wind it up if you like.
I'll try and be quick. So just touching on further what Councillor Bland said about when you go into the Barossa, you see lots of signs for all the wineries. You can never have enough information about what's in your district. Travelling to Victoria, there's a sign just out of Ararat about a lunatic asylum that's there that you can visit. So closed down one. Now that sign's been there, and it often when you drive through, you think, oh, must go there, must go there. Well, we did go there. Would never have known it was there if it wasn't for the brown sign that says
All
it's
is
there.
explained, Councillor.
Well, I went to the lunatic asylum.
Thank you for that.
So what I'm saying is we can never have enough of those brown signs. I mean, we look at the Facebook page that talks about all the great things in our region, and we don't tell people how to find it when they're travelling. And I think this is a really big missed opportunity to start getting people to find the places that we want them to visit.
So we probably need, like I said, a workshop around this so that we can explain their process and how the brown coloured signs are the international tourism colour. I don't know who designed that, and how that may lead to more information.
If we're going to have a workshop, we have to invite DIT because they make the decisions on the signs on the highways, not us.
So,
We've got no say whatsoever in what goes on the
Can't you
highway.
make recommendations to them?
No, it'll be around the process, councillor.
It's their final decision. If they don't want to sign, you don't get it. As simple as that. So on the highways, we have control our own roads, but not the highways. So if we're going to have a conversation about that sort of thing, which is a very conversation, we should have a representative here to explain their situation, because it's no good.
I'm going to wind
up
up
a hill. It's going to roll back on you.
We're going to deal with it by finding out the criteria. I'm going to move to I hope you've got a separate item, councillor.
I will move to a separate item.
Yeah, we move to a different subject in the information document, please. Yes,
Okay, parklets.
parklets,
I'm just wondering how long before we might get out and roll those new ones out.
when we
So
get them.
Email. I think I sent an email to all of you a week or so ago. Oops, the timeframes in it.
Yes.
Possibly, you probably did. I must have missed it, sorry.
But so my understanding, you want to.
Correct me if I'm wrong, Director, but they will be here by early March. Late March.
And the process to look at where they might go?
So early next year, we will be talking with DIT, if we haven't already started that conversation, about the areas where we think we may have problems, and I think I mentioned that in our email as well, around the Main Street in Meningie. Once we get some advice from them around what's possible and what's not, we will then do further consultation. We've already started to put some information in each of the three newsletters that go out, the Lakeland, Tail and Bend Topics and Canalpin Hub, and then we'll settle into deciding where they should go in the first instance after that. We didn't want to give people false hope. If it did come along and say, we're definitely not going there, we didn't want to think that the businesses that were in that particular spot had an option, but we think that they will be rather sympathetic to where we want them to go, and we'll be encouraging that, but that process will all take part early next year.
So when you say where we want them to go, what does that mean?
No, sorry. If
That just sounded like where there was
Sorry,
decisions.
no, we have made no decision. So if a cafe
Thank you.
says we would like one here and it seems logical, and it says there's no way in the store too that will happen, and we don't want to make sure that that business understands what's possible and what's not. So we thought we'd do the DIT process first before we went to businesses.
Thank you, that's quite logical.
Any other questions around the information document?
Yeah.
Councillor Arthur?
Unsealed Road Reserve Renewal Program. We've fallen behind due to machinery faults. Could we have just a bit of an explanation on what sort of faults we've got?
Page you on.
What have caused those?
So through you, Mayor, the ridge drive wheels on the construction grader seized and required to be fixed, which had the grader down for a couple of weeks.
About 2 weeks off.
Yeah, it may have been a little bit longer than that, but I don't know the exact time, but it was down for a period of time, yes.
Okay. And the one is Canoe Road upgrade, risk of rubble quality not meeting the suitable standard and therefore needing to import higher quality rubble. That seems to be a problem everywhere at the present moment. Did you get any feedback from the sort of ads or invitations you put out there for people to let us quarry their place, to say?
Yeah, through you, Mayor, thanks for that question. We had zero interest.
So how bad is the situation with rubble? You know, because it is a major component of our reconstruction or construction work.
Yeah, through you, Mayor, through our asset management process, and our current renewal program, we look to resheet some of the order of 40 to 45 kilometres a year. Going forward, there's potential that we're going to need to do more than that to make sure that our renewal targets are met and that the service we require to provide the community is up to scratch, which means more material. We can resheet roads with poor material, and they will not last as long as we need them to. So we need to find good material to provide good roads. It's as simple as that. So it's coming down to knocking on doors again and making sure that we can find the material. We may need to cut material further distances. Make sure that whatever we build is to the standard that meets our renewal targets. It's a challenge and it's something that we're working through. But it's just something that we're going to need to continually push at finding good material.
And through you, Mayor, the finding of good material may mean that it comes at more cost than finding something locally that's of low quality. So at some point, we have to do some sums about the trade-off between getting better material for the roads to last longer versus using poor quality material and doing it more frequently. So there will be some decisions to be made over the next probably 12 months.
But the economics of that doesn't really work out. It's just an interesting point because at the Limestone Coast LGA meeting the other day, I asked the question of if any other councils down there have got problems with rubble, and they have. And I mentioned that we had put a proposal into the MRLGA, which is supposed to go on to the LGA, regarding removal of trees, quarrying and reinstating. And they hadn't had that trouble. They have had trouble with land claims. But it was very interesting. The local government rep there said that has never, ever got to local government in Adelaide.
But through you, Mayor, they wrote to me about that and I have an answer for you. I think it came yesterday or the day before, but I'll send that to you. I do have an answer.
Yeah, because I think it's very important, particularly in some of our areas.
Okay. Councillor Bland?
Can I just have a follow-up question on the quarry? And that is that have we actually approached on Narang Peninsula the Yalkari farm who made an offer to us some time ago, given how its closeness to Poltalic?
We have approached them.
Okay.
Right, okay.
Thank you for the answer.
Ongoing issue. Any other questions in the information document? Okay, I'm going to move on to item 16. 16 and 16.1 in a second, but which are confidential items, councillors. So for those watching the live stream, please be advised that the meeting is about to move into conference and the live stream will stop. For those who wish to view the end of the meeting, video will be available on YouTube after today's meeting. And Councillor Ling, since you're external to the building,